Okay, good morning. The Board of Selectmen, Wednesday, November 5th, calling the meeting to order at 8:01. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Where's the flag? Back there. Okay. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
So where is it?
I must have borrowed it. I wonder if they brought it down to the gym or something.
Missing flag. First on the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Next up, approval of some meeting minutes. Regular meeting of October 15th, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next one up is our special meeting on October 22nd, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So
Second. Aye. Thank you. And lastly, our special meeting on October 24th, 2025. So moved. Aye. Correspondence. Do we have any for this meeting? We have received correspondence regarding the speed things, and what I was going to do is read those tonight. Sense to read it.
Yeah, I put them in your pile just in case you chose to read them this morning.
Yeah, we'll just wait.
I left it up to you.
Read it when it's applicable. Okay. Next up is our Board of Assessment Appeals report. Have you guys had a chance to take a quick peek at that? Not a whole lot of changes. Adjustments of $160 total. Any questions? All set? We need to accept that? No. Okay. All right, public comment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ken Tosi, Stocking Lot Road. So I wanted to address a recent post that I saw that you put up, Irene, for a response to Tanya regarding, quote, really setting the record straight on the ambulance service. And I'm disappointed in what you said, both as a taxpayer and on a personal level. As you know, I have stated to you on multiple occasions, I joined the EHA board 2 years ago for the sole purpose of helping EHA conduct their business. Throughout that time, I have done my best to ignore the viscera and emotion that was present when I started, and I have spent many, many hours toward that end. In every meeting, be it a Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, town meeting, and several private meetings I have had with you, and even our own EHA board meetings, I have presented data to support objective messages. In none of those meetings did I take undue aim at any organization with the data. In meeting with you and the town boards, I believe that collectively, we were on track to allow the numbers to tell the story. And if the numbers supported changing the approach to ambulance service to the town, then we should do so, as it has always been best to present the best solutions for the residents. I have also stated this at public meetings. It is disappointing that after all this time and all the discussions and all the data presented, you label the funding requested by EHAA as, quote, a mismanagement check, and that you have no confidence in both the operational and fiscal management of the EHAA. However, based on the meetings we've had with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, where requests for funding were presented with supporting operational and fiscal data, your fellow Board of Selectmen members and the BOF disagree with you as they approve the requests. Prior to my joining the EHA board, I read about and saw firsthand the criticisms of EHA and the request for financial disclosures. The purpose of my doing the presentations was to address those criticisms and provide information that would give a clear understanding of the revenue, the revenue stream and associated expenses. To that end, I requested of the Board of Finance a specific list of information they wanted to see to address their interests and concerns. That first meeting included much detail and addressed items such as historical revenue versus expenses, comparisons for approximately 20 years, a history of the reserves drawdown, demographic data for revenue changes due to an aging population, and a percent of calls that generated revenue. In short, a comprehensive view showing why the current system for ambulance service was no longer generating a positive revenue stream. Included as requested was a tabulation of the current revenue acquired versus the expenses paid, plus open commitments. All items requested were provided, and the data clearly showed a shortfall as expenses exceeded revenue, consistent with the message mentioned above. We also provided profit and loss statements and balance sheets. At that meeting, we were asked about a forecast for the future, and we clearly stated that the shortfall trend would continue as the data indicated. Therefore, we agreed to visit the Board of Finance quarterly to keep them apprised of operational and fiscal performance and the status of the projected shortfall, such that they would have sufficient lead time to ask questions or request more data to aid them in being comfortable with the content. We followed this practice beginning in the latter half of fiscal 24 and continued through fiscal 25. These same presentations were used for meetings at which we presented requests for town funds to address the shortfalls, and I suggested at the time that the town or the fire department should provide similar detail to support their plan to consolidate the service. At no time in these meetings were any of the data challenged or requests made for either more detail or challenges or changes to improve the presentations. Therefore, saying that the numbers were not consistent and changed each time is not only vague, it is misleading because it implies that your confusion with the numbers is the fault of the EHAA. It is not. We provided what was requested. Note that it is your responsibility to resolve questions or concerns you may have by asking questions and making recommendations to improve the communication. You did neither. Yet your comments are clearly targeted at undermining the credibility of the data and fanning the flame of the ongoing disparaging of the EHAA. The numbers you claim were inconsistent and changing each time were simply updates for current calendar status, such that the most up-to-date information could be provided. I explained this to you at one of our private meetings, but clearly the message did not take hold. Per the request of the BOF, you provided cost estimates for the fire department, assuming control of the ambulance service. I reviewed the numbers and found many lacking in substantiation, with some costs not addressed at all. Subsequently, I met with you, a fire department representative, and the Board of Finance chairman to discuss them, and I offered my future time to help improve the estimate. The Board of Finance chairman and I had extensive experience in cost estimating from our prior careers, and we offered that to you. The goal was that ultimately you could produce costs that could be compared side by side to those already provided for the current service by the EHAA. This comparison would be sufficiently robust such that it could survive scrutiny by the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and any interested taxpayer, and if it was a better cost story than the current service, then it would be accepted as the better path moving forward. The Board of Finance chairman and I pointed out the areas and gaps and questions that needed work, and we supplied specific detail in writing that you needed to provide. You agreed to accept the homework such that we could meet again in the near future to review. However, despite repeated requests on my part as to when we would meet next, you never made that happen. Concurrently, I, the EHA president, met with you and the finance director to discuss a number of topics. Included was a discussion about getting ahead of the problem, which included having a specific line item in the upcoming fiscal 26 budget that would cover the forecasted shortfall in ambulance service operations. By having an approved budget line item, it would streamline the process to acquire the funds and allow actions to happen closer to real time rather than the cumbersome process of sequential Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and town meetings, which historically spilled the funding release into the following fiscal year. We agreed to go to the fiscal 26 budget meetings with a target of $100K, which was subsequently approved by the BOS and included in a submittal to the Board of Finance. At the Board of Finance budget meeting, the finance director backed off on the dedicated line item, suggested we follow the prior process that we had all agreed to avoid. Fortunately, the line item survived, albeit as a contingency fund, which was not the optimum choice. Next, when the town budget required reduction, the EHA made a proposal to accept a 10% risk with substantiated factors, but this was ignored. Instead, you unilaterally assigned a 25% reduction with no justification at all. After no action was taken on your part to revisit the homework you had agreed to for a full control approach, we learned that you were abandoning this approach and taking a different tack altogether by recommending a shared service. I was surprised at this turn, as I saw the fire department leadership was at their budget meeting. We met yet again with myself, the EHA president, you, and the career staff captain to discuss integrating the shared service approach into a new town agreement with the EHAA. At that time, I asked the fundamental question: why is this approach better for the town? You had no answer at the time and no published plan on paper to support it. That plan should have included both detailed operational and fiscal approaches. In subsequent discussions, one of your fiscal points was to have the career staff directly bill for calls with the belief that you were funneling money back into the town. This speaks to your comment in your post about all revenue going to EHAA. I pointed out that redistributing the revenue does nothing to change the overall cost of running the service. Hence, the difference between overall expenses and overall revenue remains the same. Clearly, that math did not take root, and you went ahead with acquiring another billing service and are now implementing your plan prematurely. As to future meetings, we agreed to meet again to see your recommendations laid out on paper. During the discussions, I maintained that in an ideal world, if such a plan would be best for taxpayers, then the fire department and EHA as a team should present the plan to the Board of Selectmen and the town. The EHA participated in good faith in those discussions, despite an OES statute, Section 19A-180-9, that clearly stated your certification was null and void in 6 months from the final ruling, as the resources to sustain it were not in place. The 6 months expired in April. Subsequent discussions were ultimately suspended in part for this reason. Curiously, OEMS has not rescinded the certification despite multiple letters requesting a ruling to do so that has spanned over 6 months. The typical response for each letter were in about 2 weeks, or the investigation is still in progress. Now they don't even respond, so it's pretty clear they don't have the backbone to support their own regulations. I find it further disappointing that the continued approach to change the ambulance service is to criticize and even denigrate the EHAA as the reason to change the ownership. In the public meetings at which I presented, I urged everyone to attack the problem, not the people, and asked to have the fire department produce a published plan with the equivalent detail EHA provided, showing operational data and approaches and cost estimates for taking over the service. I further stated if said plan was better for the town, we should do it. We even suggested a task force to do it. The problem is simple: reduce the cost of ambulance service operation while still maintaining a high quality of service. However, the solution is not simple and requires a focused effort to address the problem. The fact that you continue to support the negative climate toward EHA is disappointing on a personal level. It tells me that my optimism was hollow, and that I had hoped by putting forth the appropriate data and meeting with you to offer my experience, it would help us all come to the best solution for the town. Instead, your post sends the message we are clearly back where we started. This is poor leadership and falls far short of what we taxpayers should expect. The history of your actions supports this. In addition to the items I've already mentioned, you insisted on filing a hearing proposal to OEMS for the fire department to take complete control of the service. Prior to that submittal, you sent several emails to your OEMS contact, some of them with language that I would characterize as prejudicial, and one could also argue influential in the future behavior of OEMS. I reviewed the proposal and found it failing to meet all the submittal criteria, yet it was accepted. Included in the proposal were many comments suggesting the operational instability of EHA is the main reason for changing service. However, statistical data provided by EHA at the hearing indicated otherwise. Additionally, no clear cost was identified for taking over the service. The reference was the town has the money by virtue of the size of our general fund. Yet a letter from the Board of Finance stated that no funds had been set aside for taking over the service. The final ruling by OEMS claimed that the current EHA service was unreliable due to a lack of volunteers, which was misleading. Volunteers had been replaced by paid personnel, thereby maintaining staffing and the quality of service. In addition, OEMS targeted unreliability of the EHA-owned ambulance, which was incorrect. It was the town-owned ambulance at the time that was having reliability issues due to its age and mileage. These were among the reasons why EHA filed appeals to the ruling, and as you all know, all of which were rejected. One of these appeals you label as EHA, quote, suing the town. This was misleading as there were no damages listed in any of the appeals. Yet you use this as a lever to block EHA from attending Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance meetings to initiate requests for funding. When an EHA representative asked for how much the town had spent on legal fees to support the hearing and related actions, they were forced to file a Freedom of Information Act request to get the information. That request was resisted by the town council at the time, and his reaction was to threaten similar requests of EHAA should it continue. This embarrassing response was actually published at one point. To date, it is still unknown how much was actually been paid, and there is no clear path to any such amount in the ClearGov actuals. You talk about the town agreement and funds owed by EHAA. Yes, the outdated 2010 agreement does have stipulations for town reimbursement, including the MOU for stipends for transport. It also has stipulations for continuous funding for future ambulance purchase. Neither one of these was adhered to. It wasn't until recently that sufficient funds were set aside for the next replacement ambulance to be purchased, and it is worth noting that that purchase was facilitated by the EHAA president at a considerable savings to the town by locating a used ambulance in very good condition. Regarding the $60,000 that you say is owed, if you revisit my original presentation to the Board of Finance, there is data showing that the cost began to exceed expenses, revenue, in 2013. The EHAA used its reserves to cover the gaps each year until such point as the reserves were near exhaustion. At that point, requests for additional help from the town began. Should the process have started earlier to get ahead of the problem? Perhaps. However, it matters not now. So with costs exceeding revenue, it made little sense to pay the town the funds owed, only to have our shortfall increased by the same amount and then turn around and ask for those funds back to cover the shortfall. Unfortunately, you label this as a transgression and mismanagement on the part of the EHAA when it is the math that defines the problem. Your reference to requesting a forensic audit and having it refused implies potential mismanagement and even malfeasance on the part of EHAA. Such a reaction is not unexpected. However, if we would assume that an audit revealed nothing of significance, then the true problem of costs exceeding revenue would still remain. To that end, I would again point out that you have not published a takeover plan with sufficient substantiation for operational capability and overall cost to address this. Finally, I would like to emphasize, and this is important, that I have great respect for firefighters. I have friends and family who have been firefighters. What they do is both impressive and essential for public safety. And our fire department clearly takes great pride in their operational performance and their fiscal management. So it's a mystery to me why the fire department leadership would allow you to represent them so poorly in effectively communicating a plan to take control of the ambulance service. I have hoped that the new administration will be more receptive to attacking the problem collectively among all the town's EMS participants, and we can arrive at a plan that is best for the residents and the taxpayers. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, unfinished business. The automated traffic enforcement safety devices discussion. I don't know if we need to discuss this. We're gonna have the public hearing this evening. There is more misinformation out there saying that there's votes tonight. There's no votes tonight. This is all about people just finding out about it. We have Brandon Knox coming from DACRA, Jim Britton from Washington's gonna be here, and Jeff Rhodes from the police department. So they'll help answer any of the questions that people may have. And then it's up to the next administration what they're gonna do with it, that information. So it's really kind of an information dump to the next group, and then they can, do with it what they want. So I don't know if you guys have any comments in regards to that. All right, the tax incremental finance policy approval, we heard back from Board of Finance, there was a conversation about it, they're good with it. So what we'd like to do is get it up on our website on the, probably the redevelopment agency website, page, as well as the economic development page under the financing options. So that's where we think that it will live, and just put it out there that, we can finally post that if everybody's in agreement.
You're planning and zoning look at it.
Yep.
Well, you just mentioned Board of Finance.
Well, I think we already talked about planning and zoning, had seen it already, and I think you actually brought that to us because you were at that meeting. Was that you that said it? But anyways, yes, they have all done it, and EDC actually.
Yeah,
looked at it.
planning and zoning had, I think, some questions, but, okay, and EDC looked at it, okay.
Yeah, so we looked at it, and nobody seems to be, again, it's a policy, so policies change.
Right.
So it's more, again, as I've said from the very beginning on this thing, at least we've numbered two things. One, we've captured all the work that we honestly paid for to have a TIF, discussion and evaluation as whether or not we can do a TIF here in town. I also like the fact that it actually encompasses all the areas in town, not just the village, which is a good thing. And then it really just says to anybody who's interested in working with us that we may be able to do something. And that's it. So it doesn't really obligate us anything other than it tells people outside of town that we're interested in doing business with you, maybe, possibly. So I think it's a good thing to save that intellectual knowledge and stick it up in the policy. So, okay, so we'll go ahead and put that up on the website.
Motion
No,
that
we need to.
We need a motion? Okay,
You have a motion.
we have a motion. Hold on, we've got a motion. Flip it over. Flip it over. Okay, to approve a tax incremental finance policy as presented. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Appreciate the discussion around that, and it made us better. So just wanted to call your attention to the we talked a little bit about this cell tower that's going on or possibility of a cell tower that's going in at the firehouse here across from Balix. This came to us when there was a company that heard about the cell tower going up on East Haddam Colchester Turnpike, and they suggested there's a better site possibly. So anyways, either way, just FYI, if anybody doesn't already know, the site on East Haddam Colchester Turnpike was approved by the Siting Council, so that is going forward. I think they're even over there working on it already. And this one, we were thinking that what we would do is go to the Siting Council anyway with it, just so that any future work has to be done on it, but we don't have to do that apparently. So what we do is we take it through the paces. Planning and zoning has already talked about it and approved it through their thing, and the next thing is whatever the next thing is. And again, this is another thing that'll go passed on to the next administration, and they can work on it. But the deal is that they put up the tower, and then Verizon, T-Mobile, whatever, go to the Siting Council and ask for permission to put it up on our tower. So that's how that works. So that's how that one's going to work differently a little bit than like a private tower. So that's what's happening there.
So it wasn't,
Give you an update.
they're still willing to do it?
Yeah.
Still willing to put, even though the other one's approved and is gonna go in?
Yeah,
I thought it
because
was kind of like one or the other, like.
no, that one doesn't. The one over in East Haddam Colchester Turnpike doesn't address the shagbark mess
Okay.
at all. Whereas this one will certainly do that. And Craig is in favor of putting the emergency thing at the top of it, and that's part of the reason why we can do what we can do is because he's going to be at the top with his radio, emergency radio connection thing. So that'll be up there first. And then, like I said, if anybody wants to get on there, then they go to the Siting Council. And from what I'm hearing from these people is that usually when there's an existing tower and a cell company comes in and wants to get on a tower, it's usually a lot easier process than getting the initial tower, approved. And again, because it's not on private property, it's on town property, Siting Council does not need to be there to approve it. It'll still go through its paces, it'll still get to a town meeting, et cetera, so all of that'll still happen, but with the next group. All right, so that's the cell tower. Any questions that I can maybe answer? New business, we just have one board change at this time. Secretary of the Cemetery Committee, Deb Danette wants to appoint Phil Barlow as a regular member of the Cemetery Committee to fill a 2-year term expiring on June 30th, 2027. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we have one tax refund. I need a motion to award a tax refund in the amount presented of $1,942.23 to Toyota Lease Trust.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anything else? Liaison reports.
One might be that there's a proclamation on the occasion of the retirement of Irene M. Haynes, first selectman from the Board of Selectmen, whereas Irene Haynes has dedicated 4 years of distinguished service to the town of East Haddam as its first selectman, and whereas this post followed her 2 years of service as the Economic Development Administrator and 1 year of service on the Economic Development Commission, and whereas she has given of herself tirelessly to improve the quality of life for our citizens, and whereas she is known and respected by the citizens of the town of East Haddam as a leader and a consummate volunteer, and whereas she has devoted herself to the cause of supporting her staff and promoting citizen involvement, always with a focus on betterment of the lives of the citizens she represented, and whereas she managed the town of East Haddam with confidence and strength to ensure the best use of valuable town resources, and whereas she is leaving her post to pursue other endeavors. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of East Haddam expresses its deep appreciation to Irene Haynes for her service to our town and her pursuit of excellence on our behalf, and further that the town wishes her all the best and all the future brings her way. Signed this 5th day of November 2025.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And thank you to both of you for doing what we did the last 2 years. I appreciate it. And my hope is that we certainly did serve as best we can. I appreciate the robust conversations when we had robust conversations, because I think it makes us better, and all voices are in the room. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate all the efforts and all the work that you both did. So, and of course, Linda, you know, that far being over and above, exceeding the expectations, but Linda's already there to help, always there to help. So it's been great. I'm gonna miss it, and I'll see you around. I'll be here. So thank you, everybody. Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, you missed a lovely celebration for East Haddam when we won gold and climate leader at the Goodspeed. Unfortunate you couldn't be there, but it was a wonderful evening, and also the surprise of the evening was that they had a $100,000 check that was divvied up between the 8 climate leader towns. So we received $12,500. Also not we got gold, we got climate leader, and we got some money.
That's great. That's great. And I will say, I have a speech. It's still in my phone. I was planning on being there, and it wasn't on my calendar, and for whatever reason, and I'm gonna be honest, I totally spaced. I wanted to be there. I was looking forward to it. So I really felt bad. And the only reason I even knew I missed it was because I saw somebody's post the next day, and I'm like, crap, I couldn't believe I missed it. So I am very upset about missing that. So I do apologize, and I was trying to get in touch with the Sustainability Connecticut people just to say, I'm sorry, but thank you. And I haven't been able to connect yet, but I really, really am sorry I missed that. But I will say to the sustainability team that as much as we got off to a rocky start, I'm glad we started. You know, the whole sustainability team kind of fell apart during COVID because everybody, you know, was not meeting. And when I got into office and I saw that what they do and what the plan is, I was like, we got to start this back up. And I was very happy to do that. And I appreciate all the people that bubbled up to the surface to make it happen, and all the work that you guys did, and all the work that everybody did to help you guys get the information that you needed to put it up there. I think it's great. And I think, you know, I'm working with John Olin on Resilient Connecticut stuff for the flooding down in the village, because as much as we're looking to, you know, increase development and that kind of thing down there, we still need to realize that climate is changing, and that we have to keep that in mind when we build and when we put things in place. We don't want to put things in place and then have it wash down the Connecticut River. So I think it's important to embrace all of the sustainability principles as well as the resilient principles and realize that we have to take care of our planet at the same time. So I'm thrilled that you guys got as far as you did. So thank you. Thank you honestly and please relay my thanks to everybody. I already talked to Amalia about it, but I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you. All right, anything else? I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, guys.